can get rid of, right? Okay. So, I'm going to put it over here because I think it's more easy than us coming to the yeah, say something else. We'll create something to you.
So, go back again. Go back. You see the same position?
My name is J.C. Carlson, and my pronouns are they, them. And I serve as the Associate Director of the Consortium, and I represent Queens College. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to learn more about the Consortium, its expansion, and the work that we're doing throughout the university system. Let's please give Camille Massey and Arpita Vora, who represent the law school on the Consortium, a big round of applause for their years of dedication and for coordinating today's program. And a big thanks to everyone at the law school who made today's event possible. The CUNY Law School has been a member of the Consortium since its inception in 2017, when we began as 5 campuses in the borough of Queens, doing the work that we're dedicated to do. Okay. Camille and Arpita have always been Consortium champions, and now they are joined by Dean Suda Sethi, who, although fairly new to CUNY, is not new to social justice work, as well as diversity and inclusion efforts.
Happy to have Suda Sethi as the new lead dean of the CUNY Law School, and for me as a CUNY president, you know, our newest colleague amongst the leaders of the CUNY schools, and she and I were out actually together in Flushing for dinner the other night and getting to know each other and doing everything they can to bring Guardia, a neighbor to the law school, and the law school closer together. So thank you again, and thank you, by the way, for sharing this podium with me, Suda, because, I mean, this is your podium, and I feel a little bit like I'm invaded from the other side of the tracks. LaGuardia is a close neighbor, as all of you know. We're right over the bridge on Thompson Avenue. And delighted to be here, and I look around the room, and I have to say, I think we're pretty well represented. Raise your hand, make some noise if you're from LaGuardia Community College. Oh my goodness. It's like 3/4 of the crowd. You can't see this, probably. But it seems to me we've taken over, and there's a reason for that. It has to do with something we take sort of great pride in, which is LaGuardia's role as a co-founder of the CUNY LGBTQIA Consortium. I say co-founder because we did it where JC go, with JC Carlson and Queens College. And we did it really with the support of Danny Dromm. And he's going to get some recognition in a second, but I want to go out of my way and off my remarks to recognize the great councilman, former councilman, fearless leader, great advocate, founder of Queens Pride Parade, and really founder with us of the LGBTQIA collection of the LaGuardia Wagner archives. Thank you, Danny, for all you've done, for all your support. I'm also glad that Dean said he mentioned the archives, because for those of you who might not be familiar with the LaGuardia Wagner archives, again, short walk across the bridge, it is really a unique collection in the city of the mayoral archives, as you might imagine, our namesake, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia, all the other mayors, right through David Dinkins, and then a very special collection inspired by Danny of all of our artifacts, documents, collections, thousands and thousands of photographs documenting LGBTQIA history all throughout New York City, and especially in Queens. You know, I want to thank, or actually recognize someone new before I thank her. This is her first time here, and she's our brand new provost, Dr. Billy Gastic-Rosado, who's come with us today. So very happy to be here. To a couple of people who make all this work at LaGuardia possible, and again, our leaders in the consortium, which we helped to create with Queens College. I should pause to recognize the fact that, you know, it was originally LaGuardia and Queens College, and then the 3 other CUNY institutions of Queens, York, the Law School, and Queensborough Community College out in Bayside. Those were the first 5 schools of the CUNY Consortium, and it's expanded now across all of CUNY to include 16 schools. My math says we have 9 more to go. We have VC Maybank here with us to help make that happen later this year. But what began in Queens is now expanding all across the CUNY system. Key to that work at LaGuardia, the team at the archives, co-led really by Soraya Ciego-Limur. Soraya's here today, thank you. Dr. Richard Lieberman, a name you may recognize, is not here, slowly retiring from LaGuardia after practically 50 years of service, and again, a founder of all of this. And Dr. Ali Brashears, who's a professor of biology. And of course, the new leader following in those big footsteps of JC of the consortium. So a tremendous team of colleagues that I am honored to work with from LaGuardia, who put a lot of time and effort and energy into the work of the consortium, because it's so very important to all of us. I look forward to hanging out and talking to folks. We have a lot of exciting things happening about in the program this afternoon. But really, a great kickoff to all of this. And again, Dean Seddy, I wish you were here in person to see us. I hope you can see it from however you're viewing this. But we're gonna see. JC went backstage to rev up the CUNY Pride dancers. And so put your hands together for the Queen's Pride dancers. And JC too.
For being here to speak, Vice Chancellor Maybank, all elected officials, and Mayor Peter for hosting this at the law school. It's been incredible. I grew up in small ranch communities throughout the Southwest. I graduated high school in a small town that was not unlike that of Matthew Shepard, who was murdered 3 years after I graduated. I lived in a dangerous world, and when I came out, I didn't even know the word transgender. And I came out to a therapist who recommended conversion therapy, which I did. I tried to transition twice and almost lost my job and my career. I left a tenure track position, and people in this room know what that means, to escape to New York, one of the few places in the country where I could be standing here to give you this talk. In New York City, I found the first place that I could be myself as a professor teaching biology. I found a city where politicians had created legislation that made me free. In CUNY, I found a university that supported me, and everywhere across CUNY and our city, I found individuals who were committed to change. This city that you all have dedicated your lives to, and I've lived in a lot of different places, it is like nothing I've ever experienced. The thing I love about New York City is that it is filled with builders. And there are people that build trains, and there are people that build skyscrapers, bridges, they're amazing. But in New York, we build communities. And this is unusual. If you lived outside of New York, there's often little interest in other towns for building communities. But here, every neighborhood is building a community. Every block is building a community. It is communities stacked, like stacking Russian dolls within communities. Yet the strength, I think, of New York City is not just that communities are being built. The strength of New York City is that these communities so often join together to achieve something only possible by a greater unity. They reach for goals that are beyond their individual means, which means that this city is a city of builders, a city of communities, and a city of possibility. In a very real way, CUNY is a reflection of New York City. It is a collection of individual campuses, each remarkable in its own right, linked together to make something magnificent. I've worked in ivory tower universities, where the best a local could hope for is to serve coffee or change a tire for the people who worked at the college. This is not CUNY. It is the largest urban university in the country, and there are more than 250,000 students going through each year. I've had students who arrived in my class less than a week after they immigrated to the United States. And now they're working as nurses, or they're in medical school. I've had students who were in prison for years whom I taught how to balance a chemical equation. And I've had students come out of my class for the first time. CUNY is the frame around which we build New York's future. And the CUNY LGBTQIA+ Consortium takes advantage of these strengths. It connects campus communities into something greater that allows each of us to benefit from each other's strengths and diverse perspectives. The consortium began as a public history project because we value inclusive history. We wanted to preserve LGBTQ+ history, which is so often lost, and we wanted to make it accessible to the public. The Guardia and Maybank Archives LGBTQ collection started with a donation from former council member Dromm. And now it ranges from oral histories for our elected officials to histories of Stonewall or histories of Hispanic HIV activism in Queens. Inclusive history is still at the core of our mission, and we support digitizing LGBTQ+ materials for easier public access, the creation of public exhibits and panels on LGBTQ+ history, and scholarship on these topics. But history never stops. Today's fight becomes tomorrow's history lesson, and we quickly realized that we can move beyond history preservation to history creation. Our campuses have developed programming like Safe Zone or Stop the Hate trainings, queer and trans people of color unite that uplifts community members through shared lived experiences, Out at Work that empowers LGBTQ students and community members in their professional lives, and transgender healthcare. Just over the last year since I became director, we've hosted speakers from the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice. We've heard from Bronx poets like Simply Rob, who has fought passionately for HIV activism. We've met Skylar Baylor, the first trans athlete to compete in the NCAA Division I men's team. And we've discussed the fight to include transgender and LGBTQ+ curriculum in the high schools with Dr. Stacy Bryn-Silver-Berman. We've brought together panels for the struggle for queer and trans South Asian human rights and the rise of anti-trans policy. And we've held the LGBTQI+ Student Leadership Conference to train the next generation of leaders. We've also helped build infrastructure. We've developed LGBTQI+ centers at campuses, and we've added queer books and films to the collections. And of course, we've celebrated. We've hosted special ceremonies for our LGBTQ+ students during their graduation, lavender ceremonies, and during Pride Month, where we marched in every Pride parade in every borough, as well as their Pride Fest. I can tell you I am humbled to play a small role in the work being done across the CUNY LGBTQIA+ Consortium. The individuals running these programs are tireless advocates for their students, for their communities, for their campuses. Without seeking recognition, they work late into the evenings to give our students and communities what they need to thrive and become leaders of tomorrow. And through this consortium, they've begun to build something greater than what happens on each individual campus. Each of you can help in this work. As an elected official, your continued support is vital to us. In fact, you are an integral part of this work. As an administrator, you hold the keys to the success for your campus members. Simply appointing a single budgetary point person or any other way that you can help to streamline the process helps facilitate this work. As I look out on this group, on these amazing individuals, I am filled with inspiration and expectation for this year and the many years to come. And I want to thank you all for being a part of this community. Thank you for building something that connects our city, and thank you for generating a world of possibility. Thank you. bring up a Sorensen Fellow who was funded by a fellowship from the CUNY LGBTQIA+ Consortium, Jack Pellicano, who will talk about the workshop that's happening after this reception.
Thank you again, Allie. And thank you to Camille and Arpita for having us here today, our wonderful Sorensen Center. And thank you to all the members of the consortium for continuing to support LGBTQI student advocacy across our CUNY system. It was a true honor to be a 2021 Sorensen Fellow. The work there enabled me to work with Brooklyn Legal Services and their LGBTQI and HIV advocacy project, and to start my dream work of breaking down barriers to access for legal resources for TGNC young people across New York City. Jumping off what I learned in my fellowship, I was able to develop a self-advocated name change training for CUNY students and a TGNC advocacy training for LGBTQ advocates across our system. With that, building off of those, I would like to invite you all to join me after our program on the ground floor in room 205 for a Know Your Rights training for TGNC people and for our advocates and allies to discuss how these vital city and state laws can help you support us in our fight for freedom. Thank you all.
Now I'd like to introduce a very special guest, Vice Chancellor Maybank. She's the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And although she came to us from Michigan State University, where she was Vice President and Associate Provost for Student Affairs and Services, she earned her Master's from Columbia and her Bachelor's from her own consortium, Brooklyn College. She is an exemplar of drive and education and a tireless advocate for social justice and diversity. Please welcome Vice Chancellor Maybank.
Thank you, Dr. Bashir, and thank you so much. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you what just happened. I haven't had pantyhose on all summer long. And these shoes just slipping around with the pantyhose. I'm going to break my neck getting it. So, my apologies, but thank you so very much for being so gracious. Well, I am honored to be a part of this amazing launch, and that's going to become important in just a second as I talk a little more. But I want to acknowledge Dean Setti of the law school for allowing us in this space. I've not had the opportunity to be here, so I am excited about being here. To President Adams of the Guardia Community College, glad I could come to your hood. I need to get across the bridge and take a look. And to the new consortium director, where did Dr. Brashears? Oh, okay, no, thank you for this opportunity as well. We are honoring Council Member Danny Dromm today, and former council member, I will acknowledge that, and former council speaker, Corey Johnson. And so we're glad to be in your presence. I understand that council members Tiffany Caban and Eric Botcher? Okay, is that one? No. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm just trying to keep my folks straight here. I don't know you by sight. You know, you're a list of names, and I'm glad to know them, but now I get to put faces. Okay, Mike, thank you. And also, senior advisor, Patrick Kwan, who I think I saw on Zoom during the first few weeks as an employee at CUNY. Yes, I'm an alum, but I am about to be in my 24th month, come October 3rd. So I am excited. I joined CUNY while we were totally remote, but I got to meet amazing people, like J.C. Carlson, as he led this consortium. And so I wanted to make sure I made those acknowledgments because they are significant. But I wanted to talk about the fact that this is a launch. This is the start of something. This is something set in motion. And that is what launches are about. But the thought of it is that the LGBTQIA+ Consortium launched in Queens. There's something about the space that allowed that to be, but it is also the place where, in coming to America, it was the place to go. And it's something to think about in that regard. But when I think about Queens and all that happens here, you know, you can think about the stadium and what might happen in that experience. But you have to recognize that CUNY has multiple campuses in the borough of Queens, and that is significant. And what better space than this to launch this consortium? Because consortia are about community. They are about making certain that we bring people together. And there is a quote by Audre Lorde that says, "Without community, there is no liberation." And so this consortium is about that liberation. It is about us coming together to make certain that voices are heard, that people are seen, that narratives are clear and not distorted by someone else's intent or assignment to someone else. This is about who you are and how you get to let the world know, and that you are supported by others. So we have 16 individual campuses that have decided this is important, and they've joined us, and thank you for the number, because I was fudging around 14. So I'm glad to know that it is 16, President Adams. And we still have 9 to go. But in order for the liberation to be real, the community must be formed. And so I bring to you something that I took to a retreat. They took me up in the Catskills a couple of weekends ago for the USS retreat. And I thought about what that meant and what happens in that context. And there was something that stood out for me. So I want to first thank the Pride dancers for letting us know that we need to get up off that thing. But I want to leave with you this song, because I think it is significant about community and how we come together. And what this launch is about is we set in motion the reality of who we are together. And there is a fabulous song, and that is not a description, that is a person. Fabulous and Neo got together in 2011 and did the following. I'm a movement by myself, but we're a force when we're together. You make me better. Just think about that as we launch this.
Thank you, VC Maybank. Thank you for, thank you for your leadership, for your guidance, for your support. We're always in awe of you, so thank you. We're so lucky to have you leading us at CUNY Central. Thank you. Okay, so another round of applause for Vice Chancellor Maybank. Okay, so you've heard from some of us at CUNY about how we started, you know, what we're doing and where we are headed. You've probably realized by now that the consortium did not just happen. It didn't. So it was creating a partnership, pride, and solidarity with the New York City Council and other electeds who supported us from the beginning. So I humbly ask our esteemed guests to please join me on stage. So please give them a round of applause while they make their way up to the stage. right, so thank you, Councilmember Caban. Thank you, Councilmember Botcher. Thank you so much, Senior Advisor Kwan and Chief of Staff Mallon. Right, thank you for what you do. For joining us today and for supporting our programs and for our history projects and for our initiatives at CUNY. Your fingers are on the pulse. You know your constituents. You also know your partners.